exploring Polkadot's DeFi Singularity campaign. If you're active in Polkadot's governance, you've probably heard about this campaign. It passed back in February, and it was designed to solve one key issue, which is liquidity. Liquidity makes it easier for users and capital to enter the ecosystem. Other chains have sort of solved this issue with bridges to Ethereum, and Polkadot now has Hyperbridge, which is the most secure way to connect with major blockchains. And to spark activity, the community passed the DeFi Singularity campaign, which uses treasury incentives to reward liquidity for DOT and VDOT on Ethereum, Arbitrum, Base, BNB chain, and I think a couple more. And the goal is to make DOT a true multi-chain asset and to fuel Polkadot's DeFi growth, which I think we're on the right path, guys. So here to discuss that, I have Ben from Hydration, Lowell McShiz, Sean, co-founder and builder of Hyperbridge, and Tyrone from Bifrost. Together, you guys put in this proposal for the DeFi Singularity. But before we talk about that, just someone tell me what we mean by liquidity. When we say the word liquidity, what is it that we're actually talking about? Do you want to?
No, I think Ben is the right person for this.
Ben's the liquidity guy. Okay.
So liquidity is essentially when assets are available in some form for other users to be able to buy or sell into, which enables users to be able to exchange those assets, right? So rather than conventionally, you have to go to a middleman who would buy your assets at a certain price or sell to you at a certain price. It's all done automated. So, for example, on Hydration or as part of this campaign, you can have the more liquidity you have, the more volume and the higher amounts of assets that you can swap without having impacts on price and things like that. So in TLDR, more liquidity you have, the better you can get execution on your swaps.
Okay. And so, Sean, I'll come over to you now. Why was this DeFi Singularity campaign necessary for Polkadot? It passed back, and maybe just give us an update on how far it's come along, how much was requested, and so on.
No, for sure. So, I'll start with the primary motivation for the DeFi Singularity campaign. So, the reality is DeFi was born on Ethereum and in the Ethereum ecosystem and has had a lot of time to mature on there in terms of the depths of liquidity and the number of DeFi users in these ecosystems. And the hub, right? I think of Ethereum kind of like as the NASDAQ, well, for today anyways, of crypto, right? It's the place where all the crypto assets are traded. And so it makes sense to have DOT. Of course, DOT is available through centralized exchanges, but it makes sense to also have the DOT asset, which is, I think, one of the top 20 assets in crypto, to also be available in this sort of crypto NASDAQ that we have, and be able to allow for what we primarily call decentralized onboarding of new users to the ecosystem. Like I said, DOT is available on centralized exchanges. Not a lot of people fancy this, because of like KYC, or maybe they live in like regions where this is restricted. We saw MiCA, we saw delisting of a lot of assets and restrictions of trading, for instance, in the European region. But, on Ethereum, these assets are freely tradable. So having DOT there is, well, very important to access these DeFi users, and then onboarding in the sense that people who then buy DOT in these exchanges, these decentralized exchanges, whether that's Uniswap, are then able to bring their DOT into the Polkadot ecosystem, where they can then access DeFi opportunities in the Polkadot ecosystem, right? So these are the two primary functions of the DeFi Singularity. And yes, we did get this approved way back in February. Once again, we thought it was going to be easy, but it wasn't that easy as we sort of initially estimated. A lot of things were in our way. So, for instance, getting the DOT token registered in CoinGecko, registered on EtherScan, getting the liquidities on Merkle. We had previously Bunny. Turns out that to redeploy incentives on Merkle, people are now able to access. And of course, there was also a few infrastructure gaps in Hyperbridge that we had to make ready and to make the infrastructure ready. So that's a very, very brief answer of your question. If you have anything, I can go into it.
Yeah, Sean, we actually are losing you a little bit. I think your video is cutting in and out. So I don't know if you can close a couple tabs or something. Maybe that helps. But I did want to ask about the actual mechanism for this. So you receive this DOT from the treasury, and how are you rewarding these people? So you're sending out DOT to Ethereum, Arbitrum, and so on, and giving rewards to people that provide liquidity for certain pairs. Is that right? Can you just explain the mechanism?
For sure, for sure. So primarily, the proposal said we're going to basically take some DOT from the treasury, convert this to VDOT, so we now have a yield-bearing asset, and then use this VDOT as incentives for LPs in selected Uniswap pools across the different EVM DeFi hubs. So we selected Ethereum. Ethereum, of course, has a huge DeFi TVL in the tens of billions. Arbitrum and Base, which are also leading in DeFi activity as well. And finally, Binance, the BNB Smart Chain, which also is holding its own as a sort of DeFi hub as well. And we created Uniswap pools. We seeded the initial Uniswap pools, and then we had to deploy these incentives via Merkle, which is a very popular incentive distribution mechanism. They've distributed over $1 billion in incentives for LPs, lending, whatever. And so we have VDOT there where people can LP and they can automatically redeem these incentives on a day-by-day basis. And in fact, I think we've already distributed around $50,000 worth of VDOT in incentives to existing LPs already.
Okay, and you mentioned VDOTs, and that is Bifrost's product, Tyrone. Tell us a bit about liquid staking and what is VDOT exactly, and how can people use it? So just explain it in very simple terms for the audience.
Yeah, sure. So I guess everybody knows what is staking. So what is liquid staking? So liquid is liquidity, and liquidity is the cash flow of an asset can be traded or swap or transferred. So which means the cash flow of your asset, and the liquid staking means a cash flow of a staking asset that you can trade it in the secondary market, or you can just hold it by absorbing the yield bearing. So it's quite easy. So VDOT is the case, and DOT staking is where you stake your DOT into the consensus mechanism, and VDOT is that Bifrost will be the delegated to stake your DOT and give you a representation token, and you can use that as the cash flow, use the capital to trade in the secondary market. So that's it.
Yeah. So basically, if someone were to stake traditionally on Polkadot, they would more or less be locking up their DOT, and they can't really do anything with it, right? It takes 28 days to unbond it. But with VDOT, you can stake with Bifrost, and then you get the token you can exchange it for other tokens. You can
exactly
do some other things with it. Coming back to you, Sean, for a second. So the users are rewarded in VDOT on those chains. And then do they have to come to Polkadot to redeem it, or can they swap it directly on those exchanges already? Wait, we're losing you, Sean. So we're losing you a bit. I think your video's cutting out a bit. So I'm gonna come to Ben for that question. The question was, the users are getting their VDOT on those exchanges, and then what do they do with it then? Or Sean's back now.
Is he back?
I think he's still frozen on my end. How is he for you guys?
Oh, I think he's so
okay.
back.
I mean,
Sean, you're back.
I'm muted. Okay, fine. So
Yeah,
I
you're back.
mean, I was gonna say that like the rewards, the incentives are in fact in VDOT. But it's the case that the deepest VDOT pools are actually on Bifrost. So if you wanted to go from VDOT to actual DOT, you would have to bridge back to Bifrost and then do a swap, or potentially hydration. I can see Ben shaking very firmly there. And essentially, if you wanted to get DOT from VDOT, you would have, and then potentially, if you wanted to liquidate, you could liquidate to USDT on hydration as well, right? And then you could, potentially redeem this to exchanges, what have you. So this is the primary way in which people can redeem their rewards, or you could just hold VDOT as well, right? Like it's a yield-bearing asset, and you basically are shielded from DOT inflation. And this is, I think, also a very good thing. You could also potentially borrow against
Okay. So you cut out there at the end, Sean. Maybe go back to the other window you had when you first joined him. I don't know if it might be a bit clear, but we caught most of that. We just lost the last 10 seconds. But I was wondering if you could share any like numbers around the volumes, like bridge volumes or swap volumes that we've seen so far. Now he's on mute. All right. Now you're on mute, Sean. Let's see here.
I'm sharing my screen right now. Let me know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can just zoom in a bit there, please. Yeah, that's better.
Right. So we're looking at the Hyperbridge Explorer, which basically tracks all of the volume and all of the messages and all of the activity happening on the Hyperbridge blockchain. Once again, Hyperbridge, in fact, is a parachain. It's a blockchain that acts as a bridge for different networks. And as we can see right now, we're sitting at very close to $10 million in total transaction volume. So these are all the people who are moving their DOT and VDOT from the Polkadot ecosystem potentially to all these different EVM chains and back. As they redeem their incentives, they're also bridging back as well. And since the start of the campaign, this volume has primarily been from these users. Of course, we're adding new tokens and new applications to the Hyperbridge front end, which I wouldn't really go into right now, but just a little teaser for what's coming. Yeah, it's been I would say that have been very impressive. I'm also going to share with you this the Uniswap front end. So on BNB chain, we have a lot of volume for these different tokens. So you can see, for instance, this is here on Base. It's already done. Okay,
please. Yeah.
So this is for instance the dot pool on Base, and that's already done like around 300K in like transaction volume. So people swapping between dot ETH or USDC dot, because you can actually, the network that has actually done the most volume, and this is not surprising, is actually BNB chain. So BNB chain has done almost $500,000 in volume since we deployed the pools, and you can see the numbers just keep going up. And this is also because like DOT already exists on BNB chain, where it's already being used in DeFi and things like PancakeSwap and things like Venus, which is their lending protocol. And a lot of what we've seen actually is that people are swapping DOT for the actual like official DOT token, and then they're bridging it back into the Polkadot ecosystem to take advantage of these Polkadot, like the DeFi activity on Polkadot. So this is all very, very exciting stuff, and this is really why we started this. But there's just this happen, right? So this is kind of known.
Okay, so some awesome numbers already. And you mentioned bridging DOT back into the Polkadot ecosystem. I want to come over to Ben and just ask, what can people do with DOT in the on hydration, for example, in Polkadot? Maybe you can tell us a bit about Gigadot or some of your incentive campaigns on hydration.
Yeah, sure. So at the moment we have a similarly Treasury approved incentives campaign live on hydration, so the Polkadot Giga Hydration campaign. This is more focused on bringing liquidity specifically to Polkadot of non-native assets, whereas the Hyperbridge campaign is more about building connections to those other networks and spreading DOT wider. So two different objectives actually work quite nicely together. So I'm just showing here, you mentioned before about the deep liquidity of VDOT. And so, yeah, I just want to show we're actually in our Gigadot pool, which is where you get VDOT from on hydration, has actually just crossed over $100 million of TVL. So that's in the Gigadot product. So I just literally checked to see how deep it was, and we've crossed that threshold for the first time. So that's quite exciting to see. So yeah, once you've got those assets, you can come and obviously you can swap them on hydration. You can also borrow against them if you're bullish on DOT and want to hold it and would like to get some other assets to work, then of course you can borrow against those. If you're degenerate like me, you can see here I've got very, very low health factor.
1.02, wow, really pushing it.
Yeah, very degenerate, but I am getting a 43% APR on my DOT. So
explain how you're getting 43%. Just like what did you do there?
So this is Gigadot and VDOT looping.
And if you could zoom in just slightly, please, because it's a bit small.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Command plus, I think.
Command plus.
Yeah, there you go.
You see it? Yeah.
Yep.
So I've put my dot or V dot whatever into Gigadot. I've swapped it, added to that pool. I've then borrowed dot against that, which you can see here. I pay 6.89% APY on that. I've then supplied that in here as Gigadot, which has allowed me to borrow more dot. And I've repeated that process probably too many times. Obviously, I live online. I'm terminally online, so I'm perhaps living close to the edge. Make sure you do your own research. But yeah, so as a result, I'm basically that spread between the borrow APY and the rewards I can get through Gigadot has allowed me to keep compounding those rewards and leverage it up to the max.
Okay. And so, I mean, I would say that the state of Polkadot DeFi compared to like a year ago is in a much, much better place because of these, because of the campaigns that the Treasury have funded. Tyrone, coming back to you, I mean, what else do you think could be done, or what more would you like to see in the ecosystem, whether it's like more OpenGov proposals, or are there certain products that you'd like to see be built? Are you excited for Polkadot Hub that's coming up, possibly in November? I mean, what are just some ideas? This is sort of an open-ended question to everyone. Some ideas around how Polkadot DeFi can continue on its upward trend.
Yeah, well, I'll be the first. The first I would like to see is Holler, to be honest. And the second one is to precompile on the Polkadot Hub. So that's two essential part in the ecosystem right now. It can bootstrap the builders and also the liquidity. So Holler will be the meaning of liquidity coming in, and the stable coin recently is very, very a hot pot in the industry, and also the precompile will bring the EVM builders coming in, and also we like to see some more like lending and borrowing products coming in, like MoFo, like those the institutional or custodians products that they would like to focus in on. So the custodian or the delegators, they're focus or concentrating on the liquidity of institutional backed reserved product. So that might be interesting for some RWA products coming in as well. So I guess that's something we would like to see more of a sort of things coming up into the industry in the Polkadot.
All right, so you mentioned Holler, which is a stablecoin product currently in development by Hydration. Maybe Ben could just give us a status update. And also, Jacob talked about this in a recent X Space, I think it was last week. But why do we need another stablecoin? Like, why is it important that Hydration have their own stablecoin? What are the benefits of it?
So, hot off the press, Holler should be aiming for launch on Monday, the 22nd of September at 2:22 p.m. UTC.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah. So there'll obviously some block drift. It might be some minutes or hours or something either side of that, but that's the one we're aiming for in the launch proposal. So that's not been properly announced yet, but there you go. So the reason you want a strong native stablecoin, right? So at the moment, we've obviously done some great work with the existing campaigns to try and increase liquidity of USDT and USDC, the sort of two biggest stablecoins in the whole of crypto. And obviously that allows flow of liquidity in an asset that people consider, safe or like less volatile, let's say. However, those are, centrally controlled by Tether and Circle, respectively. Those can be frozen at any time by those parties. Obviously, be bad.
A lot of people don't realize that, actually.
Yes,
it's very scary.
They've got freeze rights over those and everything like that. So I mean, obviously, unless you do something bad, that shouldn't happen. But that's always a risk, right? And obviously, people are always trying on self-custodial assets are always trying to reduce their risk where they can, right? So a native stablecoin that's decentralized, that is over collateralized like Holler, allows people to much more freely flow in and out of stable coins without requiring these centralized parties, right? But also those the yields from stable coins that are synonymous with those products at the moment, Tether and Circle just bank all of that themselves, right? So those stable coins will be backed by treasuries which are earning a yield of 4, 5, 6, whatever %, and that just goes to their bottom line. which is obviously making them very, very rich. Whereas with decentralized stablecoins such as Holla, any interest or fees or anything paid remains within the ecosystem. That's obviously a much better place for people's yields to be going than to some private party.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that Tether is like they're the most. I think they have the most revenue per employees or something. They only have like 10 employees and they make, tens of billions of dollars or whatever on interest. So
insane.
But in this case, Holler, the reward, the interest that's earned from those financial products goes back to the community. So and it can't be frozen. That's the other benefit, as you said. Sean, coming back to you, maybe we kind of skipped over Hyperbridge a little too quickly, I think, because it is such an amazing product and it is different than other bridges. Maybe you can kind of just tell us how it's different, and maybe if you want to share your screen again and show us the UI. But anything you want to touch on? Yep. Let's see here. And just zoom in a bit, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely. So I mean, one of the things that a lot of people ask me from all these different bridges is that I like to tell them that what exactly is the mechanism by which messages, cross-chain messages get authenticated on the destination chain, right? Because if you want it to be able to execute sort of arbitrary messages on say, for instance, BNB chain, saying that these messages came from, I don't know, Polkadot, like how do you tell BNB chain that these messages are in fact coming from Polkadot, right? So this middleman, this third party, multi-sigs, whatever you want to call them, MPC, it's all the same words for the same thing, which is a committee of people who are this authorization, right? Who are this trusted middleman that says, well, you can trust me. These messages are in fact coming from Polkadot. But Hyperbridge does away completely with this notion of needing a trusted third party. In fact, like I said, Hyperbridge is a blockchain. And the way that it does this is by, instead of having a third party or a trusted person, we have code. We have code that lives on the blockchain that is able to then verify the transactions that are coming from all these different blockchains, right? So this is this metric here. We have total number of proofs that have been verified. And these proofs, they're consisted of like finality proofs, so proofs that some specific transactions or some specific blocks have been finalized by all these different chains. And they're also transaction proofs, so proofs of specific transactions that need to move across blockchains. So Hyperbridge does this verification. And now if we want to let these different chains know that these transactions can be executed, we use Polkadot signatures, right? So Polkadot, it's a fully decentralized network of around 600 validators right now. That's one of the highest of any proof of stake network. And these validators, they come to consensus
as well. Yeah.
Exactly, right. So they come to consensus about what is the finalized states of all of the different parachains on Polkadot. And if Hyperbridge has already verified some transactions, then these transactions also exist on Hyperbridge, right? So we let these different blockchains know, okay, here's the latest finalized and verified state of Hyperbridge through Polkadot. And then using very, very complicated Merkle proofs, we're then able to let these blockchains know what transactions have been verified by Hyperbridge. And it's a very complicated process, but what does that mean end to end, right? End to end, we use proofs to basically transport messages across different blockchains. And one thing I like to say is that I'm a co-processor, and I remember when we came out with that, a lot of people were kind of skeptical, like, what do you mean co-processor? It's normal in crypto for people to invent new words just so they can sort of hype up whatever product it is that they're building. But the reality is that all of the proofs that Hyperbridge is currently verifying, if you tried to verify them on, say, for instance, an EVM chain, this would run into the trillions of gas. As you can see, this is actually 8.5 million mega gas that was required to have verified all these different proofs. So this just does not scale at all. And this is why a fully proof-based bridge just has never been done before, is that like scalability constraints of the requirements of all these proofs. But you see, Hyperbridge is doing this co-processor job. It's processing all these proofs on behalf of these different chains. And at the end of the day, when they receive the messages that are intended for them from all these different blockchains, you end up with very, very short proofs, right? If you've ever bridged on Hyperbridge, you'll realize that like the transaction cost is ridiculously low. It's basically negligible, right? That's because a lot of the heavy work has been done by the Hyperbridge blockchain. And then the rest of the chains just have to do very, very little work to then verify Hyperbridge, right? And so this is what I mean when I say Hyperbridge is a co-processor that scales verifiable interoperability. So hopefully this makes sense.
All right. So a lot going on there. I mean, yeah, it is sort of a totally novel concept of how you're able to achieve this. And as you said, you're saving how many millions in gas?
Trillions, actually. So this would be
Trillions in gas.
8.5 trillions of
8.5
gas
trillion. Okay.
that would have been required to verify messages coming from 11 different networks. So potentially, say you're on Gnosis chain, for instance, and you wanted to like receive messages from all the networks that Hyperbridge currently supports, where Hyperbridge is kind of running the light clients for all these different networks. If you had to put those light clients on Gnosis and verify all these different networks by yourself, then you would run into these like trillions of gas, right? And that's just not scalable because you need to also process user transactions, right?
And what's this I'm hearing about a possible hydration Hyperbridge collab coming soon?
Oh yeah, no, it's exciting. We now have hydration on Hyperbridge testnet. I mean, I can't really show you that right now because we're still cooking up the details. But basically, hydration will be able to send and receive cross-chain messages with all of the networks you support, and not just EVM chains, but even external Polkadot SDK chains that were previously siloed. Right? They previously don't have a bridge to any blockchain. But because of Hyperbridge, they will now be able to bring in their tokens. They'll be able to bring in their users and activity into the Polkadot ecosystem, right? So this is really exciting, and I can't wait to sort of release what we're working with the hydration team.
Yeah, so I wanted to take advantage of the rewards for Solana, and I think I had to use Wormhole to bring it into hydration. But in the future, that could possibly be Hyperbridge.
And most definitely, there is a few things that need to happen to make this a reality, but I think it's inevitable that we will be able to support all networks, all major networks on Hyperbridge.
Incredible. And so looking forward, I mean, so a lot of progress made, as I said, in the last year in Polkadot DeFi. I think Hydration's TVL is now sitting at nearly $500 million last time I checked. Just incredible, really, the growth. What else can we expect another, like a refresh of this Singularity campaign or a refresh of the Giga campaign, or what's down the road, guys?
So I'll touch base on hydration briefly. So we've got another, at the end of this month, we'll be halfway through the Giga Hydration campaign. So we've got another 3 months to go. We'll be switching up a few of the incentives on that because we've discovered some bits which have worked really, really well, other parts not so well. So we'll tweak those around a little bit. And of course, as we committed to in our original proposal, because we were originally going for 1 year, 5 million DOT, and then we switched that up to 6 months. So that we could work with Velocity, Parity, Web3 Foundation, etc., on a bigger, more encompassing campaign ready for the launch of Polkadot Hub. So we'll be working on that over the coming weeks, and then obviously get a proposal up before the current campaign runs out. So our expectation would be to continue the work. I mean, we've seen it's been a huge increase in users, in TVL, in volumes, etc. Starting to get appearing on more and more of the the stats publishers and things like that online about, I think we had one last week, hydration is the fastest growing DEX in crypto, and various things like that. So starting to see us, Polkadot names appearing on more. I think Bifrost were on now like top 10 liquid staking protocols in terms of fee revenues and things like that. So it's starting, as a result of these campaigns, starting to see Polkadot based projects appearing on these leaderboards, and so you can't really ever anymore say like, oh, Polkadot's dead, because like all the evidence is telling you otherwise.
I mean, and these campaigns have been like, from the user standpoint, are just amazing. Like, I think I haven't checked the last few days, but I think I was earning like, what was it, 40% on Aave and Sky or something like that. I mean, just like incredible APYs. So good stuff. I mean, I hope for a campaign refresh for sure.
Yeah, and these are enough to bring people who would otherwise be skeptical of Polkadot to Polkadot, right? So some people don't like the idea that you're giving farming for mercenary capital and things like this, but sometimes you need a draw, especially in financial sort of incentivized ecosystem like crypto. You need a draw to bring people, and a lot of the time they've got loads of feedback now that that they've come across, and actually they really like it. They like the platform, and they're actually willing to take a look at what's going on, because all of it stops being the butt end of a joke, and all of a sudden you're actually up there in the conversations.
I mean, it was pretty incredible to see ICO Beast, who is probably the biggest name on crypto Twitter this cycle. Like, I mean, just a massive creator posting about his rewards on hydration. So I mean, it's getting vetted by like some of the top people on CT as well. So it shows that this is serious stuff. So I thought that was super exciting. All right, guys. I mean, we're kind of coming up on time. Was there any other points you wanted to hit on? I mean, if not, we can always do this again in a few weeks. And
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd like to maybe share the upcoming revamped UI for Hyperbridge, right? So a lot of people have been complaining that Hyperbridge doesn't really support, stable coins, USDC, USDT, all these different things. Maybe the old UI was a bit like janky.
Again, please.
Let me know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you, but just zoom in a bit because I think you have a wide monitor, so it looks
right.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is the upcoming UI. We're hard at work in making this fully functional and like bug free. And you can see here, like we can basically transfer all these different assets that you're already used to on our previous UI. But this is where the fun stuff happens, right? It's upcoming swaps. So you'll basically be able to bridge USDC, USDT across all these different ecosystems on BNB chain, on Base, Arbitrum, and this will happen almost instantaneously, right? Like this is going to be the same experience you get from things like a cross or things like Relay Protocol or even things like, I guess, dBridge. But this time it will be essentially powered by Hyperbridge and Polkadot in the background, but you don't really notice this, right? You just, from your perspective, you're just swapping from one EVM chain to another, but the verification, the processing, all of that is handled by Hyperbridge. And honestly, it's super exciting. And, we have our new UI and everything. So I think people will really love the new experience that we've been cooking up over the past few weeks. So just wanted to give an update to the community. I know a lot of people have been asking for this, but don't worry, we hear you. And we'll be releasing this very, very soon. You have no idea how soon, honestly.
All right. So lots to look forward to. And I feel like you guys are really driving Polkadot DeFi forward. I forgot one other thing to mention. We have the DeFi Builders Program from Velocity Labs. Velocity Labs doing a lot of great work behind the scenes in terms of getting integrations with sexes and so on. So I'm very bullish on the state of DeFi and Polkadot. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just look at the TVL numbers, look at the volumes and so on. So a lot of good stuff, and especially thanks to you guys and the proposals you've been putting in. So thanks for your work, and let's do a check-in again in a month or two.
Most definitely. Thanks for having us, and it was great. It was great to have this.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, guys. Yeah.
Good
Take care.